Friends, I am Jaideep Sharma from Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi, and I will be discussing phase relations with you. I hope you all know that phase relations is a topic in library classification, and this concept was given by S.R. Ranganathan. You need to have this concept of phase relations to express subjects that are called complex subjects. You all know there are three types of subjects that Ranganathan has identified and defined as basic subject, compound subject and complex subject. He defines basic subject as a subject that has the first context specifying element as the basic facet only. I give you some examples of basic facet like law is a basic facet. There is a document on chemistry, it is having only a basic facet. There is a document on history, it also has a basic facet only. But then a subject which has a basic facet, along with it an isolate facet also is known as a compound subject, like history of India. We had given an example of history in the earlier, where we were mentioning the basic subject, but when we say history of India, this is a compound subject wherein there are two facets, history the basic facet, India the isolate facet. We can have more than one isolate facet also, like when I say chemistry of natural elements, or I say teaching of library and information science, or I say preservation of manuscripts in libraries. Now, you see here I have given an example where there is a basic facet library in information science, there is a basic facet of manuscripts and another facet, isolate facet, that is preservation. Now, there are two isolate facets and one basic facet. So, these are examples of compound subject. So, I think it is clear that in a basic subject there is only one facet, that is the first context specifying element, which is known as basic facet, which has been enumerated in the schedules of classification, whereas in a compound subject, in addition to the basic facet, there is an isolate facet also, which may be of different types, which Ranganathan has categorized as 5 fundamental categories: personality, matter, energy, space and time. So, when we say isolate facet, it could belong to one or more of these fundamental categories, and this goes on to form a compound subject. Now, what is a complex subject? This is the third type of subject that Ranganathan has identified and defined. He says that a subject wherein there is a relation between two basic subjects or two basic facets in relation with each other, or a basic subject and a compound subject in relation with each other, or it is a relation between two compound subjects. Such a subject is called a complex subject. Like I give you an example, relation between physics and chemistry. Now, you see there are two basic facets here, two basic subjects, physics and chemistry, and you are studying the relationship between them. Application of computers in industry. There are two facets and you are studying a relation between them. What is that relation? Application. Use of mathematics to understand the concepts in physics. Now, two facets in relation with each other. These are all examples of complex subjects. Trade relations between India and China. So, it is another example of a complex facet. So, it could be complex subjects or complex facets that are formed, and Ranganathan has identified them differently, and we will be discussing all these in a little while from now. Now, we are now clear about what is a complex subject. Now, to express a complex subject, to analyze and synthesize the notation for a complex subject, to classify a complex subject in a library, Ranganathan has given the concept of phase relation. What is this phase? There are two phases or more than two phases. So, while you classify, you have to identify these phases and put them in relation with each other to express the subject, which is the complex subject. Now, these phases Ranganathan has identified as general phase, it could be a comparison phase, it could be a difference phase, it could be a bias phase, it could be a tool phase, or it could be an influence phase. I will explain each of them one by one. So, as the name says, general phase is the easiest to understand. That means, if it is a relationship between two phases which is general in nature, Ranganathan has categorized it as general and uses a particular notation to indicate this general phase. Bias phase, there are two facets, there are two subjects which are in which one is biased towards the other. Such a relation he has identified as a bias relation. The relationship between these two phases is that of a bias relation. The third type of phase that he has identified is comparison phase. Again, it is very clear, it is quite understood here that the two phases are studied in relation with each other. We all know that there are so many subjects in this knowledge, universe of knowledge, that are related to each other, and we study them in comparison to each other. Like geology and geography, we may like to study them how they are related, we may like to compare them. Physics and chemistry, political science and history, political science and public administration, and you could have some such documents before you while you are classifying. How would you do them? You apply phase relation. So, I think at the idea plane it is clear, at the verbal plane it is clear. We will also try to see how these are expressed at the notational plane. So, we have seen the general relation, we have seen the bias relation, we have also now known the comparison relation. I told you the other one is difference relation. Though the comparison and difference are almost the same, the only thing is that you are differentiating while comparing. So, this is a special form of comparison relation which has been termed as difference relation. Similarly, he has also identified the influence relation, wherein he says that one subject influences the other subject, and so you may say that one is biased, it is biased towards the other, whereas when the degree of relationship is stronger, it is influencing the other subject. And you know, in due course of time, such influences of one subject over the other subject result into the birth of a new subject also at times, and it happens in this universe of knowledge. So, till the 6th revised edition, these were the relations that were identified, whereas in the 7th edition of Kolin classification, the tool relation has also been identified, wherein a subject is acts as a tool in the study of other subject. And you might be thinking this tool, and you all know mathematics is an example, statistics is an example. This is a subject wherein this acts as a tool to study some other subject. So, this is how the different types of phase relations have been identified by Ranganathan. So, I think now it is quite clear that as a classifier, when you are classifying a subject wherein it is more than one subject and one is exposed to the other in a particular way, or they are studied in relation to each other in a particular way, you have to apply what? Phase relation. So, this is clear now. Now, this phase relation has been differentiated into 3 different types in a different way, though those are also phase relations, as I told you about these 6 different types. From a different point of view, Ranganathan says 3 different types of phase relations. And what are these 3 types? Inter-subject phase relations. Almost all the examples that I have given till now, these are all examples of inter-subject phase relations, means 2 different subjects belonging to 2 different disciplines studied in mutual relation with each other. I said physics and chemistry, this is an inter-subject phase relation. I said botany and zoology, this is an inter-subject relation. Another type of relation that Ranganathan has given, he terms this as intra-facet relation. And the third type of relation he has identified as intra-array relation. You should know what is facet, you should know what is array, then only you will be able to understand intra-facet and intra-array. You all would have studied that you say that you divide a particular branch of knowledge on a single train of characteristics, you result into a facet. Like in medicine, if you talk of the organ facet, or you all know that when we study medicine, we talk of different organ systems, the digestive system, the respiratory system, the reproductive system. So, these are all examples of a particular facet. And in this particular facet, when it is the characteristic is single characteristic, on the basis of single characteristic you have a particular group of entities, these form an array. So, when you talk of digestive system, you talk of the stomach, you talk of the intestines, you talk of the liver, they all form an array. So, the phase relation could be between 2 subjects, it could be between 2 isolates of a facet. If it is so, then it is called intra-facet. It could be between 2 isolates of a facet of a single array, then it is called intra-array. I again repeat for your clarification that if the relationship is between 2 subjects, it is called inter-subject. If it is between 2 isolates of the same facet, it is called intra-facet, and if it is of between 2 isolates of the same facet and same array, then it is called intra-array. So, these are the different types of phase relations. Now, let me give you some examples. Before giving you examples, I would come to the notational level, notational plane. We have talked of the idea plane, we have talked of the verbal plane. You all know that while doing the work of classification, Ranganathan always says we work at the idea plane, at the verbal plane, at the notational plane. What we think of at the idea plane is implemented at the notational plane. Now, we have already understood, yes, there is a relationship. This relationship is different. It could be general, it could be bias, it could be comparison, it could be difference, it could be influence, it could be tool. Now, we all know there are different types of relationships. We should be able to show them by notation, because when we classify our literature, when we classify our books, when we classify our documents, we assign them a notation. The notation should be able to differentiate these documents. If I am able to say yes, by the notation itself one knows yes, this is a general relation, this is a bias relation, then only we will be able to achieve our objective. Ranganathan says that we should be able to classify documents so that they are in a apupa pattern. That means all those that are strongly related kept together, less related little far, still less related still far, and those which are not related are farthest up, which is called alien out of the apupa, penumbral, umbral, like that. So, how do we do that? If we are not able to give them appropriate notation, if we are not able to give them, assign them different notation. Therefore, he has assigned different notation, and when we assign, we find the different phases that are there, we join these phases by notation. So, first of all, the phases that are joined by using an indicator digit, that is 0. Up to 6th revised edition, it is 0. So, my dear friends, all those who make use of 6th revised edition in their libraries, or our students who are making use of 6th revised edition to classify their documents, they should join the two phases by using the indicator digit 0. And in case you are using 7th edition, then it has to be ampersand. It has to be ampersand to join the two phases. But it is not enough. You have to have different symbols or different connecting symbols to join these two phases, and these are, if it is a inter-subject relationship, please remember that for general relationship we use small a, and this is inter-subject. For the bias relationship we use small b. For the comparison relationship we make use of small c, and for the difference relationship we make use of small d, and tool relationship small e, and influence relationship small g. So, you might be confused, I said 0 and ampersand in 7th edition. In addition to that, I have given you small letters also. So, what do? You join the two phases by 0 and this small letter. Like if it is a general relationship between physics and chemistry, we have to join physics and chemistry by 0 a, small a. But then the next question that comes to my mind, whether it is physics first or chemistry first, because it does not say it, classification does not mean that I say relationship between physics and chemistry, you put physics first and chemistry second, and if I say relationship between chemistry and physics, you put chemistry first and physics second. No, this violates the canons of synonym and homonym and other canons that Ranganathan says. You have to have a unique notation. So, whether I say physics first or chemistry first, the notation should be same, and for that Ranganathan has given a rule, and he says when it is a relationship between two subjects, then a general relationship between two subjects, you should place the subject which has lower ordinal value first and the subject having higher ordinal value second. So, my dear friends, what will be the number for relationship between physics and chemistry? Yes, it has to be C 0 A E. Why not E 0 A C? Because C has a lower ordinal value, therefore, it comes first and E comes second. So, if it is a relationship between geology and geography, what will be the number? You all know the number for geology is H and for geography it is U. So, it has to be H 0 A U, that is relationship between geology and geography. But then the next problem that comes to us is bias relation. What is this bias relation? One of the subjects is biased towards the other subject. It has been specifically written for that subject. This document on this subject has been specifically written on the other subject. Then what do? Then you say, like it is a book on ethics for teaching, let us say this is the book. Now, this book on ethics has been written for those involved in teaching. So, what is this? There are two phases, one is biased and the other is biasing. So, it is the biased phase that comes first and biasing comes second. So, what is biased here? It is teaching, and what is biasing? It is ethics. So, biased followed by biasing. The next type of relationships is comparison. Now, you compare two phases, you compare two subjects, you compare two isolates, you compare two facets. The rule says yes, the one which has lower ordinal value will be the first phase and the one with a higher ordinal value will be the second phase. So, if it is a comparison between let us say physics and engineering, then you all know the number for physics is C and for the number for engineering is D. So, it will be C 0 C D. This is how, sorry, it is Z C 0 C D will be comparison. And similarly, for difference relationship also the same rule, the one with lower ordinal value first with higher ordinal value second. So, it becomes C 0 D E. And influence phase is if subject influences the other subject. So, it becomes the influenced phase first and influencing phase second. This should be the order. Now, if it is a intra-facet relationship, the notation that has been identified by Ranganathan is for general relation it has to be small j, for bias relation it has to be small k, for comparison it is small m, for difference it is small n, and for tool it is small p, and for influence it is small r. So, mind you, we are talking of the intra-facet relation. I will give you some examples, just hold on. Similarly, if it is intra-array means between two isolates of the same array, it has to be in the same order general, bias, comparison, difference, influence, it has to be small t, small u, small v, small w, x and y. So, this is how they are there. So, it is very clear that the two facets have to be joined with the indicator digit 0 along with a small letter, and you all should remember that the connecting symbol is 0 as far as CC 6 revised edition is concerned, whereas it is ampersand when you talk of CC 7th edition. Now, let me tell you some examples, and if you open up with your CC schedules you can check up that if it is I have read out some of the examples, some more examples. If it is relationship between political science and history, it will be V 0 A W, and what is the rule says that V is history, it is lower in ordinal value, W is political science, higher in ordinal value, therefore, this is the order. If it is relation between botany and zoology, I 0 A K, it becomes relationship between botany and zoology. If it is relationship between linguistics and literature, you all know the class for linguistics is P, whereas literature is O, therefore, it will be O 0 A P. Now, if it is trade relations between India and Japan, now this is a what type of relation? Yes, this is a intra-facet relation. This is not an inter-subject relation, this is a intra-facet relation, and we will class this document in economics, and you go to economics main class, you will find the number for trade is x colon 5, trade is energy here. You are talking of trade happening between the two countries, therefore, this belongs to the fundamental category energy, therefore, the number will be x colon 5, and you are talking of relation between India and Japan, therefore, x colon 5 dot 42, it will be 0 j 44, because 42 is Japan and 44 is India, and again according to the rule the one with lower ordinal value will come first and the one with higher ordinal value will come second. Now, I give you some examples of bias, and it is a very typical example that Ranganathan himself has given, medical jurisprudence. Now, what is this subject? Here it is an application of medicine in law. Now, this is an example of a bias relation, and the subject that is being biased is medicine, and biasing is medicine and being biased is law. Therefore, the number becomes L 0 B Z. Z is law, L is medicine. So, here the law is being biased by medicine, therefore, it is this. Similarly, if it is mathematics for engineers, so here mathematics is biasing engineering, therefore, the number becomes D for engineering, whereas, if it is mathematics for economists, it become B 0 B X. Statistics for librarians. Now, statistics is B 28. If you open up your schedules, you will find the number for statistics is B 28. Therefore, it becomes B 28 0 B 2. 2 is library science. I give you another example of the bias relation, wherein it is between two different disciplines, and the example is personal hygiene for children. The number becomes L colon 570 B Y 11. Y 11 is children and L colon 57 is personal hygiene. Wave mechanics and quantum physics, a comparison, it becomes C n is wave mechanics, C n 1 and C n 2 is quantum physics. So, it becomes C n 1 0 m n 2. You do need not to repeat C and here again C, because this is from the same facet. Another example, the surface of sun and moon in comparison, the number becomes B 920 m 3 colon 635, because here surface is colon 635, whereas B 9 is astronomy and 2 and 3 are sun and moon. Similarly, another example, personality of rural and city dwellers, a comparison, it becomes Y 310 V 5. So, 31 is for the rural folk and 35 is for the city folk, and you need not to repeat 3, because you are talking of a intrafacet relation. Another example of such a relation is influence of television on children, and children is Y 11, you can say 0 G is the influence, and we talk of the influence of television, the number for television is D 65 comma 45. So, you can have as many examples as possible, and you every time you make use of these, like application of mathematics to economists, this is a tool phase relation x 0 E B. Influence of physiology on morphology L colon T L colon 2 0 R 3. I think by listening you may not be able to really catch up. You have to think of examples, you have to open up your colon schedules, and you have tried to formulate the notation for them. The rule you have to remember is that the which one will be the first phase, which one will be the second phase. You have to connect both of them using the connecting symbol 0, and you have different small alphabets notation that have been identified by Ranganathan, have been recommended by Ranganathan. You have just to see whether it is a inter-subject relation, or it is a intrafacet relation, or it is an intra-array relation. So, just to recapitulate, I would again like to repeat that phase relation has been the concept has been given by Ranganathan to express complex subjects, and these complex subjects are formed as a relation between two basic subjects or two compound subjects, or a basic and a compound subject, and this is this concept has been given because we may have some sub subjects of different types of documents that we may have to classify, and according to these rules, if we assign this number, it results into uniformity, it results into a arrangement which is most convenient to the user and also expresses the growth of knowledge likewise. So, I think it is clear by now. You may read more the books on prolegomena to library classification, as well as the schedules of colon classification, that will really help you to understand further this concept and clarify any further questions that you have in this regard. The mantra to really know these things is try to classify as much as possible, try to get access to such literature and try to classify yourself. You will be more clear with the more titles that you do. Thank you.